What kind of a sucker do you take me for? Just because you're a girl and I'm a boy and you're throwing those big blue eyes at me and you're letting me put my arms around you and you let me hold you close, even closer, you think you can get me to do anything you want? What do you want, baby?
My favorite brunette, 1947. This is a Bob Hope vehicle. Bob Hope certainly didn't pioneer the breaking the fourth wall comedian. You certainly had the silent film stars and you had the Marx Brothers, but he is kind of the one that I grew up with, seeing that with his roadshow movies with Bing Crosby on PBS. Also later on watching Woody Allen films, and Woody Allen credited Bob Hope with his comedic style and the way he would look at the camera and delivers one-liners, and he credited Bob Hope to his persona, a lot of his persona on film. But even modern movies like The Mask with Jim Carrey, like watching this reminded me of that, or even more with like Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool, or even back in the 80s with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Watching this movie just reminded me of those type of performances and those actors and how much they benefited and borrowed from a guy like Bob Hope.
I can't say I have a ton of familiarity with Bob Hope. I have a few of his movies. I don't think I've ever seen this one until today. I think I have only one other movie that I can think of that I know I've seen. So yeah, obviously I know who Bob Hope is and what he does, but I haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of his films, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I don't think I've seen any of the road movies. I don't think.
Yeah, his filmography didn't really stand out as much as like the Marx Brothers or some of the other comedians at the time, and I think that's what kind of hurt him a little bit. And then he kind of dedicated a lot of his career to those USO shows, which took away from his films and stuff like that. A lot of people are probably more in your boat than in my boat. And again, this is well before my time, but in an era where I didn't have cable and you had like 8 channels, any channel that showed any movies, I would just watch them. And I found his movies hilarious. And what I also found ironic is that in these comedy duos, when you find out in real life, it's actually the guy who doesn't get the girl that is the one who's the womanizer behind the scenes. Because in his movies with Bing Crosby got the girls. And then there was also Jerry Lewis. He was with Dean Martin. And Jerry Lewis was the womanizer, and Dean Martin would just go and get drunk and pass out in his hotel room. And Jerry Lewis would be sleeping around with all these different women. But on their screen performances, you'd say, oh, well, yeah, that guy's the one getting all the girls behind the scenes. And I do have a somewhat tangential connection with Bob Hope. I've mentioned before I was good friends with Joel M. Reed before he died recently, last year. But he was a beard for Bob Hope. And he took out a beard for Hope. He took out a bunch of girls, wined and dined them, and then at the end of the night, he dropped them off, and Bob Hope would have sex with them. Because Bob Hope was a married man, a family man, and he couldn't necessarily take these women out. So Joel, out of it, he would get to see shows and free dinners and things like that. But then at the end of the night, he dropped the girls off at the hotel, and that's when Bob Hope would come in and take over. So,
and what was that term you said? A beard?
A beard, yeah.
He was. I've never heard that term like that before.
Yeah. People generally consider it when you're talking about like homosexual men with women playing their wives, but it's the same concept.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, no, I've never heard that. So okay.
You've never heard the term, or you've never heard it used in that way?
No, I've never heard the term. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's a common term. Yeah. It's not needed as much now because homosexuality is where it was predominantly used, back when it wasn't nearly as accepted, and gay men would marry straight women, but they wouldn't have sex with them. It would just be for show. It'd be their beard. Yeah. Their beard would cover your face.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's a term I've never been familiar with. Interesting. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
You learn something every day.
Maybe some of the viewers learned it too. Then,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on the film? Because this is actually a film that you said you wanted to watch, right?
Yeah, I've had it in my collection for years, but I've never watched it. It was actually, I had it on videotape for a while because I inherited a bunch of movies from a friend of mine. So he had the movie, and I just got his tape. I eventually got the DVD as well. So this was the first time seeing it for me. I, off the top of my head, I think I only have one other Bob Hope movie in my collection where he was the star of it. So yeah, I was happy to see this.
Mhm. It actually had a pretty strong cast. I'm not sure how familiar you are with some of these cast members, but Alan Ladd. I know you haven't seen Shane, but it's one of the great westerns. But aside from that, Ladd was in a lot of detective films and a lot of noir films. So it was kind of like a funny cameo for those familiar with Ladd or films at those times to see him playing a cameo. And Bob Hope literally says like Alan Ladd's name right
Right.
before Ladd turns around. So that was pretty funny. And then towards the end, I already mentioned he did a lot of these road movies with Bing Crosby, and Bing Crosby was there in the last scene.
Yep.
And also throughout the film, you had Peter Lorre, very famous in these type of
Hmm.
films, Lon Chaney Jr. as well. So
Dorothy
um,
Lamour.
she was the straight woman in a lot of the movies with Hope, and even like in the traveling like comedy shows and stuff like that. So she
Hmm.
spent a lot of her career making a lot of money playing the straight woman next to Hope and Crosby. So and she, very beautiful woman, well deserving of the titular character. My favorite brunette. She would be my favorite brunette as well. So
I get it. Yep, absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, so this was interesting because as much as it was like a spoof or a satire of detective films, it actually felt like an actual detective film at times too. At times you had the comedy straight in your face, but at other times the comedy would take a back seat to the plot. And I thought it was a decent mix, I thought.
Yeah, I think overall I enjoyed this one quite a bit actually. It was I think it was more of anything a straight on detective movie, obviously with comedic themes thrown in as well. I think this could have played out as a regular noir detective film without the comedy, but they obviously with Bob Hope in there, and this is more a vehicle for him too. So, but yeah, it could have been a standalone detective film on its own, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's just like he throws in his one-liners, occasionally looks at the camera, says lines that the characters in the scene don't react to at all. That's just meant for us. That's why I compare it to like The Mask with Jim Carrey and Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool, because those can be straight on action movies, but also comedies
Right.
as well, you know.
Yep.
So very much in the same vein. So yeah, this is definitely high recommend. Any other final thoughts on the film for you?
I enjoyed this one quite a bit. Like I said, it was one of like, I'm not familiar with Bob Hope. I know he's a comedy legend. I know he lived to be 100 years old. But as much as I know of him, I've seen very little of him. So it was nice for me to broaden my horizons, I guess you could say.
Yeah, stop watching all those smutty films and watch some good ones. Does this make you want to watch any more of his films or not really?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll watch anything. As long as it, especially if it's good or if it's rated good, it's going to be a good film. To me, as far as I'm concerned, films do stand the test of time if they're good. If they were good when they started, they're going to be good now.